Everybody's making a lot of money, except the poor kids that come out of the projects like I did. I was brainwashed in believing that this is in my best interest. This is my way out of the ghetto, and I took it.
Basketball Hall of Famer Chet Walker today on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson. They called him Chet the Jet. Chet Walker was a 7-time NBA All-Star during a 13-year career with the Philadelphia 76ers and the Chicago Bulls. And that was after a 2-time All-American college basketball career at Bradley University in the early 1960s. But his success wasn't even limited to the court, because after he retired from the NBA in 1975, Chet Walker became a pretty successful Emmy-winning TV producer. But along the way, for many of those years, Chet Walker also had a smoldering anger, an anger at the way he'd been treated as property, as a commodity in college and in the NBA. Finally, in 1995, Chet Walker wrote his memoir, a book called Long Time Coming, subtitled A Black Athlete's Coming of Age in America. I met him that summer to talk about it. In just a moment, our conversation.
Have you ever opened a time capsule? You're about to. This interview is from national radio personality Bill Thompson's 30-year interview archive. Enjoy.
So here now, from 1995, Chet Walker.
I felt that I had something to say that I had been holding in for a long time, and about 4 or 5 years ago, I started thinking seriously about putting it into memoir form. And I felt that I wanted to tell another side about athletics. I wanted to tell the human side. I want people to know who I was as a person, rather than just this guy running around out there with short pants on, trying to put a ball in a hoop. And I thought that not only could I tell a lot about myself, but about other people who play games and would like to be known as a person.
Well, not to take anything away from all those other basketball books written by former stars of the NBA, but yours is different than theirs. I mean, this is you intended this as more than just then we played Houston and we won that, and then we played this and we won that.
Well, I didn't purposely come out to write a book that was different. I wanted to write an honest book. And I think the honesty in the book is about me, the person. It's different, of course, but it's what I'm all about. It's what hook, line, and sinker. It is me to the bone, and that's what I want. That's the kind of book I wanted to write.
What were there times when it was hard to write this?
Very difficult. Certain segments of it was very difficult to reveal, because I was a very private person, very a shy person for a long time, and it was very difficult to let some of these things out.
How did you know where to draw the line? I mean, I'm assuming there's still a lot more that you didn't tell us.
Yeah, I didn't tell you the good stuff. But I think I revealed a lot. I mean, I talked about abortion in the book, which was a very traumatic experience for me. And this was before abortion was legal. And it's got interesting when I do these interviews. Nobody ever asked me about that. It's kind of interesting, about the girlfriend and I who went through this very horrible situation. But I think that's part of me, who I was. And this was an incident that happened to me that affected my life.
Was it difficult to bring back the memories, though, your early years, growing up in Mississippi?
In Mississippi, yeah.
And then moving to Michigan at a time when there were a lot of people like you moving to Michigan, but it was a difficult place to be, maybe not difficult in the same way that Mississippi was, but it was difficult nonetheless.
Yeah, well, the Mississippi stuff was very painful, interesting, and I dedicated the book to my mother because she was the force that took me out of that oppressed environment. And then when I moved to Michigan, I had to adjust to another environment that I wasn't used to. So I was still looking for the separate signs of colored and white and restaurant that said this and that. So I had to make that adjustment, and it was difficult. But I did okay, I think. I hope anyway.
How did you happen to choose Bradley?
It's the long story. It's a long story, and I try to make it as short and sweet as I can. But after finishing my high school career in Michigan, I was trying to decide on a school to go to, and I narrowed it down to 2 schools, University of Nebraska and Bradley. And my mom and I had chosen Nebraska because the athletic director was from our hometown, which was Benton Harbor, Michigan. And on my way to the airport to catch the plane to Nebraska, the assistant coach at Bradley came by my house in the projects and said, "Would you mind if I give you a ride to Chicago?" And my mom said, "Oh, fine, you know." And on my way there, he constantly tried to talk me into changing my mind. And I didn't really say yes, and I didn't really say no, because I kind of liked the school. It was a little intimate school that I kind of liked, but I had made a commitment. And on my way there, he turned me over to another person who happened to be a Baptist preacher from Chicago. And you know, Baptist preachers can talk you into doing anything if you ever known a Baptist preacher. And plus, he had some money to give me. And the final journey to Chicago, they had a private plane waiting for me at a private airport, and they took me down there. And I was down there for 2 weeks with no clothes, anything, because I'd already shipped my clothes to Lincoln.
I've tried to imagine often what it must feel like to be so wanted at such an early age. I had to fight to get into college, let alone choose among more than one.
But you were not in the position where 10,000 people would pay to come and see you.
Exactly.
Talk or whatever you were doing at that particular time.
And that's
what it's all about.
Boy,
I was a commodity and a very naive person, and they could exploit that, and they did. And thank God it eventually worked out pretty good. I managed to get a degree, and I managed to become a little bit academic after going through all that trauma. So all's well that end well. My mother used to say, "Well, the Lord will provide, and He will take care of you," and He certainly watched over me.
But I wonder, I mean, is it fair to put that kind of pressure on a kid of 17, 18, 19 years old?
Of course it's not fair. But who's talking about fair? Who cares about fairness here? You know what I'm saying? It's a situation where universities want to make not only money, but they want to put their college on a national scale. They want to try and attract other students to come to their school because actually, sports in college is nothing but a tool or vehicle to entertain students between classes. The chemistry students need a break from their studies, and they can come over and watch a basketball game, and we provide them that entertainment. You didn't know that, did you? Really? Originally, that's what sports was on campus for, is to give the students something to do between the exams.
And now it's the NBA's minor league.
Of course. And then the NCAA, it's their source of income. And everybody's making a lot of money, except the poor kids that come out of the projects like I did. And I was brainwashed in believing that this is in my best interest. This is my way out of the ghetto. And I took it and believed it. And in some ways I was exploited. But then, I got some out of it too. I have to admit that. I did learn something from that experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, it hasn't been all bad for you.
No, it hasn't been all bad. But I have to talk about the bad thing because people like to hear that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but I gather that it's important to you that you told both the good and the bad.
Of course, because I think young aspiring players should know that. They should know the ups and the downs, and by knowing that, they can deal with it better than I could. I hope it helped them to put it in perspective and realize that the number one priority in being an athlete is to try and get a college degree. And if anything occurs after that, then it's like gravy. But the perspective is use it to get a degree.
But if you were an 18 or 19-year-old today, do you think you'd be able to take your own advice?
No. Especially if I'm poor And I got to help my mom buy a house? I don't think so. But then I don't know. I mean, that's the way I feel. Realistically, that's what I'm talking. I would consider and say, "Oh no," I would reject it. But reality speaks louder than words.
Yeah, when you dangle a few $1 million out in front of somebody, and they're
of course.
Suddenly attitudes can change real fast.
They certainly can. They certainly can.
After this short break, Chet Walker recalls the overt racism he faced in the 1960s.
Are you enjoying this conversation so far?
And would you like to get a copy of the book we're talking about?
Just tap the link in our show notes or visit our website, heardeverything.com.
When you make a purchase through our affiliate links, you're also supporting this podcast.
And we thank you for your support.
Now back to my 1995 conversation with Chet Walker.
I'm also trying to imagine what it must be like to be traveling on the road with a professional basketball team in the NBA, but yet you can't do what some of the other players are doing. You can't go where some of the other players are going. You can't stay or eat where they're staying and eating because of the way the society is.
Well, that did not happen in professional, but it happened in college.
Oh, okay.
In college, during the early 60s. Oh, you're right. And it's very difficult for a young African-American man to deal with that. Especially for me to come out of a segregated society into an integrated society, back into a segregated society as a big star, and trying to figure out, what's going on here. I mean, I thought I was somebody.
Yeah, for somebody to say, on the one hand, Chet, you're a star, we love you, and by the way, you go to eat over there.
Yeah. It hurt. It really hurt. And I had to write the book to get rid of the anger.
Have you been angry all this time?
Long time I was angry. And I kept it all inside because I was not vocal. And then, I played in the 60s and the whole thing, and I couldn't speak out on some issues because I was afraid of repercussions. And the anger just built and built and built. And I think about 10 years ago I was thinking about writing something. But I had to write the book to get out the anger.
Well, heaven forbid an athlete should have an opinion about politics or the state of society. We can't have that.
Of course not. Because we may say something that can help the world.
No, can't have that.
We can't have that.
But it must make you feel at times, well paid, although you may be. It must make you feel at times as though you're nothing more than a circus act,
as they say, property.
Yeah, exactly.
Property.
And that must have really rankled you when they used that word. And
it's kind of interesting because in one of the other programs I did, a caller called and he said, I don't understand why you're upset because people refer to you as property. Because, you make a lot of money, you're a public figure, you should be happy to sign autographs. But he missed the point. It had nothing to do with the game or signing an autograph for kids. It was the word. Someone calling me a piece of property. That hurt. It makes you less than a human.
But you have proven that there is life beyond the NBA.
Well, I hope so.
I mean, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed A Mother's Courage.
Oh, thank you.
This is you have turned into quite a filmmaker.
Well, yeah, I enjoyed that film too. It was kind of a testimony to my mother. She was similar to the character that was portrayed in the film. And I have a film out now called The Glass Shield that we've been getting some good reviews from, except Siskel and Ebert gave him one thumbs up, one thumb down.
Nobody listens to that anymore.
But I've been proud of the film that I've done. It makes me feel good. And the fact that I've gone from this, from one spectrum of the entertainment world into another, I hope it sends a message to young boys that you can do something else with your life other than bounce a ball.
Is the thrill of seeing a completed movie that has your name on it, is that similar in any way to winning a great game in the NBA?
Oh, yes. Oh, it's a great feeling this last project I did, The Glass Shield, it was based loosely on the killing of a young African-American football player in a place called Signal Hill, California. And when I was pursuing this story, I just had a 2-page article on this young man. And to see it grow from that 2 pages all the way up to this story on the screen, not only with pictures and actors playing out the parts that I had only visualized maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, it's a great feeling. And then having it turn out to be a pretty good film, that's a wonderful feeling. You know, I'm very proud of that.
What have you missed most about basketball?
I miss the relationships with players. I had great friends when I played. I miss those guys. I miss the relationship because when you travel on the road for 9 months with the same people, you become a family. You know, when you have to leave that, it's like leaving your family. And I miss the relationships. The game I missed, but by the time I finished playing, I was so banged up that, I not having to get up every morning really hurting the way I did playing, it compensates for that. But
a few years ago, I got to tell you, Walt Frazier told me, because he said the old saying goes that the first thing he goes is your knees.
Yeah.
But he said it's not your knees. He said it's your mind.
Of course.
He said when you go out on that court and you can't get excited when they're playing the national anthem. He said it's time to get out.
I know. One time I was sitting. I remember my last year I was sitting on the bench, and all of a sudden it hit me. What am I doing here? I just couldn't relate anymore. There was something that just hit me right. What am I doing here? And I just because I was a 13-year veteran, and there was a lot of new kids on the team who were 15 years younger than me. I couldn't relate to them anymore. I couldn't talk about it because I'd come to the Vietnam that they had experienced, and I was political, and I was saying, I don't need to be here with these kids, So he's right. It hits you. Yep.
Chet Walker was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2012. He died in 2024 at the age of 84. Now you can get your copy of Long Time Coming by Chet Walker by tapping the link in our show notes, by clicking the link in the description below if you're watching us on YouTube, or by going to our website, heardeverything.com. We may earn an Amazon commission if you make a purchase. Heardeverything.com is where you can also find my 1991 interview with Chet Walker's Philadelphia 76ers teammate, Wilt Chamberlain.
Think about being a boy of 14 years of age and 7 foot tall. It was frustrating and very at times embarrassing for me as people pointed and gawked and looked at me as a freak. Thank God for the day when you see a tall guy, they say, wow, he must be an athlete, basketball player. Ooh, dollar bills.
And my 1988 conversation with the great Walt Frazier.
Everywhere we went in those days, they wanted to know, are you Wilt Chamberlain or are you the Globetrotters? Those were the only two people that they knew. So by the Knicks winning and being New York, we added a lot of glamour to the NBA.
And of course, we post new episodes of Now I've Heard Everything every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can find us everywhere you find podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. Next time on Now I've Heard Everything, have you ever wondered why the internet has taken over from the traditional news media and why our attention spans are so short anymore? We'll revisit my 2009 conversation with the editor of the New York Times Magazine, Bill Wasik.
The more people you have out there trying to come up with some new spin on it or some new analysis of it, the more that we have these sort of intense pile-ons to stories and then these very intense abandonments of them.
That's next time on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson.